As the magnitude of what Anders Breivik did in Norway began to sink in, this Italian politician said something very interesting. Mario Borghezio said Breivik's philosophy was perhaps great. Forced to say sorry to Norway, he was suspended but not sacked from the Northern League party he represents in Europe. He's not a lone voice. This colleague in the European Parliament told us that he and many others feel much the same way as Breivik about some core principles.
We are in agreement with him on defending Western civilization and on combating illegal immigration. Our culture is based on tolerance. These other cultures are sometimes aggressive, not just with words. We see violence against people who don't respect their rules.
Central Italy seems an unlikely place to find such anger. In the medieval towns, you can hardly find any visible minorities, let alone evidence of Italy being swamped or having its culture subverted by Islam. Yet the narrative among many here speaks purely of fear and mistrust.
This is a concern in general of our and of many countries. We are moving towards a loss of our identity. For them, their religion is part of their state, so they impose it.
Above all, it's the loss of security, loss of jobs. This is the feeling of all Italians. It's a general concern, and immigration is an important part of it.
These are not people who would regard themselves as radical in the least, yet Anders Breivik might well applaud the sentiment. What's happened over time in Europe is that ideas which were once considered the preserve of the hard right have been co-opted into the mainstream. So, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel or the British Prime Minister David Cameron can both say that multiculturalism is dead. France and Belgium have both banned the Islamic veil. Italy will soon follow. All of these things have allowed the hard right to claim that its ideas are eminently sensible. These views span the continent. Seen over a longer timeline, it leads to a conclusion that far-right views in Europe haven't had this kind of prominence since World War II.
And certainly there is the sense that the West is no longer in control of the world. This is very clear. And of course people are worried, and this gives a lot of impulse to far-right parties saying we are going to protect ourselves. So I would say in terms of support, electoral support, I would say that the far-right is stronger now than possibly it has ever been in European terms since 1945.
Anders Breivik has been cast as a lunatic megalomaniac who may at the most have had a handful of crazy friends. As terrifying as his actions were nowadays in Europe, some of his philosophy is shared by a significant number of people, and perhaps just as frightening is the lack of an argument against it. Laurence Lee, Al Jazeera, in Italy.